You are listening to Realign Your Life podcast, where I discuss with you strategies on how to realign your life and move towards the direction you always want to. I am Vivian, the host of this podcast, and every week I will bring value on how to improve and realign your life either through a guest or my thoughts. I can't wait to share what we have this week. It's time to realign your life. Well, hello there, and welcome back to Realign Your Life podcast. This is Vivian, the host of the show, and I am so excited and, of course, honored to have you to join with this episode. Well, as I always promise you, I have some thoughts of my own, but in this episode, I have a special guest from you. And I say a special guest because he hails from my hometown of Shelby, North Carolina, and his family and I lived in the same neighborhood. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? So anyway, I want to introduce you to pastor, leader, teacher, counselor, Juan Cherry. Juan, welcome to Realign Your Life podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And just to know that you lived in the same neighborhood with my mom and her family, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. Yeah. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And you know what? And speaking of neighborhoods and living in the same neighborhoods, it's so important now that we come together as neighbors and supporters of each other. Because back in those days, that is exactly what we did. We supported each other. And as I was sharing with you earlier in our conversation, you know, I would stay in their house all the time. We didn't even lock doors back then. You just went to somebody's house, and if they were cooking something that was good, you just got invited to the table. And I remember my mom using this expression, it's a gracious planet, so come on in here. It might not have been nothing but pinto beans and cornbread, but it was a gracious plenty of that, and you were welcome to it. Yeah. So let me just share with the listening audience a little bit about Juan, because I'm telling you guys, I know that you are going to truly be blessed with what he has to share with you today. So Juan is an author also. I neglected to say that, but he is an author, and what he loves to do is to empower people with visions for themselves and of themselves. He writes motivational books and books that are self-reflective that you can enjoy. And he will tell you a little bit more about those books and how you can get one in your hand. He is also a graduate of North Carolina A&T, historically Black college and university located in the Carolinas. So we love our HBCUs.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
He graduated from there with a Bachelor of Arts in print journalism. So that is kind of why you know he's a prolific writer and author. But he also received his master's degree in school counseling from Gardner-Webb University. So we're going to delve into a little bit of that also. But this is what I really love. He is the senior pastor and founder of New Creation Christian Center. And so, right now, in these times, we need to hear a word from the Lord through his servant man. So Juan, tell us a little bit more about all of these things that you do and how you incorporate all of that and keep all of these balls in the air.
Well, you mentioned a lot, and it's just what I do. I mean, my whole life is about people. You know, everything you mentioned is people, and whether it's school counseling, whether it's pastoring, the books, everything I do is because I have a heart for people. I want to see people better. You know, I want to see people living the life God created them to live, experiencing the life that God wanted them to have. And so everything I do is just a different facet of what I'm here to do. You know, I tell people a lot that, you know, yes, I am a pastor, but it's just a part of what I do. You know, it's just another way I manifest who God's called me to be. So I don't get caught up in titles and any of those kind of things. It's just about trying to make people better, you know, and that comes from a lot of different places in my life. Crazy thing, very low self-esteem for a long period of time, almost imposter syndrome, those kind of things. And I always kind of wanted people to live the life I wish I lived, to push them to be good, because sometimes I didn't feel like I could do it. That was really the motivation behind a lot of it. But that's just it. I just want to see people better. I believe that God put us on this earth. I look at it this way. I've never been to Disney World. Never been to Disney World, may not ever go. But here's what I think. Most people go once. This life is a one and done. You're not going to come back and do it again. You're not going to get another chance. And so my thing is, while you're here, do it, live it, experience it, because this is the last time we're going to get a run at this thing. And if you're going to do it big. And that's just my mentality.
So how do you motivate? How do you motivate and get people to really do that?
Okay. Here's the thing. People have to start to believe in who they are, who God created them to be. I look at it this way. I was talking to somebody the other night. My aunt, you probably remember, S10 used to love to do puzzles. And we would do 500-piece puzzles, 1,000-piece puzzles, whatever. Here's the deal. You never count the pieces or the pieces in the box to see if you have all of them. You just assume that the box has all the pieces in it and you just start working. And so what people have to understand is God has gifted you and created you with everything you need to be successful. You just got to figure out how to put those pieces together. Know every piece is in there. You might not know where they go, but God's gifted you, talented you. He's given you desires and things. And so what I help people do is understand their giftedness, overcome those apprehensions and those fears, and trust what God's given them to chase the life that's in their heart. And that's just kind of what I try to do.
So what do you think that stops most?
Fear. Go ahead.
Okay, you got it.
I'll let you finish the question.
That's what I was gonna ask. What do you think it is that stops most people from pursuing that?
I think it's fear. It's either fear or the lack of knowledge. Uh, there are a lot of talented people who are fearful to step out, and there are other people that don't recognize their talent, so they don't step out. And that's kind of what I try to help people do. I mean, nobody's better than you. Nobody has more than you. We might be different, but you have something to offer. You have something to bring to the world. What I try to do is help people find their giftedness and trust what they have and use that, because it's not about accomplishment. It's about fulfillment. And many people, when you don't pursue your purpose, when you don't discover your passion, you're frustrated because there's a part of you that's not fulfilled. And that's when we get caught up in different things, because we're not doing what it is God has created us to do.
So when you are working with people, counseling people, or
Mm-hmm.
talking to your congregants, what is it that you say to them to help them? Or what is it that you guide them in helping them to walk through that fear or walk
Okay.
past?
Okay. One of the things first of all, one of the things that we try to do is help people to understand their uniqueness and their giftedness. That's where we have to start. It's all about mindset. And, I think we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the first book that I wrote is called Wired for Success, Equipped to Fulfill What You Have Been Created to Accomplish, right? And so what we talk about there is, it's like that the room that you're in right now is wired with electricity. You don't see the wires behind the walls. You don't see that, but you do see fixtures. You do see the fixtures. You see the switches. And so what happens is, before you go in the house, it's already wired for power. And so all you got to do is plug in, flip switches, and the power is engaged. That's what we got to understand about us. God has created us wired for success, but it's our job, our role, our responsibility, first of all, to understand that, and then to figure out where the switches are, where the outlets are, because that's where God's power flows through. So I help people to understand, hey, what are your gifts? What are your talents? What are those things that you like? What are you good at? And that's where your power flows. Trust the good in you, and then trust the God in you, because it's the God that put the good in you. And that's kind of, with a lot of people, you got to build them to get that confidence, to show them that they are unique, they are special, and a lot of times I tell people, Vivian, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but it's really obvious. It's really obvious. And sometimes we spend our lives looking for this grand scheme of purpose when it's probably tied up in your everyday gifts, abilities, and talents.
And that's so good that you say that, is that sometimes people are looking for this grandiose thing, and they're the people in their success. And I just know one of the things that in scripture, it talks about not looking at others or being envious of what somebody else has, and thinking that, well, they're so much better than me. I don't have this, that I don't have.
Yes.
So how do we let people know or show people it doesn't have to, if you do cleaning, if that's what you're great at, that's what you're great at, and do it in excellence.
Here's what I found out. One, and you said that we look at others. I heard somebody say this about 2 years ago, and it messed me up. Comparison is the thief of joy. As soon as you compare yourself to somebody else, you get caught up in what you don't have, right? And that's when we don't understand that we are special, that we have gifts, we have talents. And that's kind of what we really try to help people. You're unique, and we got to discover those things. We'll talk about this later, but one of the things that really opened my eyes, and we talk about it at some point, is that assessment. That's a game changer. The assessment is a game changer because it'll show you your proclivities, what your strengths are. And what it does is it helps you to kind of, that's a starting place. And then you build from there. And so we'll talk about that, a little later, but, we all have some.
Talk about it now. Share that with, I'm sure. Let's see, you've got their juices flowing now, right?
Okay, so here it is.
I'm curious now. Assessment.
All right.
Okay.
Here it is. About 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I took what's called a personality assessment. It's called the Flight Assessment 2.0, right? And this assessment takes about 15 minutes to do, but you get a report, and in there's a 19-page report, and it gives you a breakout into 4 different areas. It measures your relations to people, how you manage time, your pace. It measures how you like to follow procedures, and finally, it measures how you like to solve problems. And so it's split up into like air travel. So you have a flight attendant, they love people. You have a grounds crew, they love to serve. You have an air traffic controller who loves structure and order. And finally, you have pilots who love to make decisions, to solve problems. And so once you take the assessment, you'll find out in which of those areas your strength lies, right? And so what I did, Ms. Vivian, when I took the assessment, it's like I'm looking at myself on a piece of paper in black and white, like I'm staring in the mirror, right? I found out my personality type, which is a grounds crew, which means I love to serve. And you heard me say in the beginning, I love people. I love to serve. I love to be in the background. I love to make things happen. My particular personality is all about having your hands in a lot of things. Well, when you introduced me today, you said you got your hands are in this, your hands are in that. You do. That's my personality. But when I saw it on paper, it's like, that's who I am. That's why I do what I do, right? But then the other part of it shows me that I'm not the best decision maker. I don't like confrontation. So I wonder, why is it that it's hard for me to have difficult conversations with people? Well, my personality assessment says I don't like confrontation. I can be accommodating, So then when I see it in paper, then it shows me what I need to work on. So that's kind of what's helped me. My confidence has grown in the last few years. And so when I took the assessment, I said, man, I got to find out how to do this, because everybody needs to know how to discover their gifts, their talents, their uniqueness, and determine what their areas and their strengths are. So I got certified to do the assessment, and it's just been a game changer for people. We've given it to a lot of the members of our church, and it's helping us to figure out what roles people need to be in. Does that make sense? If you got a pilot who's not a people person, why are they ushering?
Yeah.
Why are they the greeters at the door? You understand what I'm saying? Because they're not people oriented. Does that make sense? And so it's kind of helping us put people in place. I've done it for a couple of companies. We kind of pulled their employees in, and we gave them all the assessment, and then they see where they are. And then you figure out how to position people within the organization and get things done.
And I am sure that then you bring this to every area of your life, whether
Every area.
or health, whether it's your mental
Every area.
um, your relationships,
Can I talk about that? All right, here we go. I'm a high grounds crew. That means, love to be in the background. Listen, order and structure is not my thing. That's not my thing. My wife is a high air traffic controller. She's all about structure. She's all about order. If you walk in my house right now, I promise you it looks like nobody lives there. I promise you it looks like nobody lives. Everything is in place. I just think, man, this woman is crazy. Why does everything have to be the way it is? But that's her gift. She loves structure. She loves order. She loves organization. She is able to strategically do things. So I'm thinking, why do we keep butting heads? It's personality, right? So then when I understand that's who she is, I step back and realize that's her doing her thing. That's what we need. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of helped us understand one another. When I'm always in my feelings, she can say something. She's very matter of fact. I'm all in my feelings. I'm falling out somewhere in the corner moping, but that's my personality, right? And so it's kind of helped us relate to one another to understand this is who we are. This is how we deal with one another. It's not personal, it's personality. Now imagine that in a company. When you've got X number of employees and you don't understand that this person's not mean, that's just their delivery. And so that's kind of what we help companies do. That's what we've done at the church. That's kind of what I love to help individuals do, because when you understand you, life changes. Mm-hmm. It really changes.
And I'm sure, so understanding you, it also helps you to understand that others are not necessarily like you.
There you go.
So now you have to deal with that personality type also. So I know that the people out there listening, or your juices should be flowing by now, and you should be salivating. So how do I get this? How do I get to do this? How I take this assessment? Is there?
Here it is. You reach out to me, email, however you contact me, and this is what we'll do. There is a cost to the assessment. It's right at about $97, $100. I'll send you a link. You get the link, you do the assessment. The assessment will take you at max 20 minutes. At max 20 minutes. And immediately you get a 19-page report that spells out your personality, your strengths, your limitations. There's a part in there, Vivian, that says, if you ever take the assessment, how to talk to Vivian. Mm-hmm. So this is what you hand people that you deal with every day, right? Because for mine, it says, do not come with information before you come with feeling or checking in. If you come at me with if you come with me talking business, I shut down. That's just who I am. Hey, Juan, how you doing today? I open up, and then we can get something done. So it just talks about the whole thing. I'm telling you, it's a game changer, life changer. Then after you take the assessment, what'll happen is I'll schedule a 40 to 45 minute consultation with you. We'll do it online, or we'll do it virtually. I'll kind of walk you through your personality type, your strengths, your limitations, help you understand what your assessment says, and then we can kind of go from there.
Okay. And so and once a person has taken this assessment, and you have your initial meeting with you to go over the assessment and how, so one can better understand.
Right.
Then, is there opportunity for that person to continue in a coaching relationship?
Yes. Yes, that's what we do. Right now, I do it in a couple ways. There's one I do. It's kind of brief. It's about a 4 or 5 week coaching relationship. And then the other one I do is about 12 weeks. And that's when we really delve, we really go deep. And it's all based on the person's goals, right? When we have the consultation, what are your goals? What are you after over the next 30, 60, 90 days? And then what I do is I show you, based on your assessment, these are your blind spots. So let's work on this, because the reason they're goals is because we haven't done them yet. There's something that's keeping us from achieving them. So we help remove the limitations, help address those things, and then put you on a plan to get where you want to be.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's a game changer.
We spoke earlier about people not moving and not doing things because of fear or have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Or they are just lost and they have no idea. I can remember working in corporate America, and I would ask people, what's your dream? What do you dream? What is your dream? What would you like and to do? And most people had no dreams. So what did you want to do when you were 10, 11, 12 years old? What did you think of then? And I know that life happens for people.
Right.
You graduate from school, you get out here, you have a family, you got bills, you got this and the other. Those things that are wanted to get put on the back burner.
Yeah.
You speak of people having goals. How do you help people that really don't have a goal? How do you help them to move forward? They need assessment first, and then we move to goals.
I think the assessment is a good first start, because it will kind of show you what your individual strengths are. That's really like a light bulb moment for a lot of people, when they can see, hey, my strength is in relating to people, or my strength is I like to solve problems, or my strength is I love structure and I love order. Because some people just need to know they can do something. Does that make sense? They just need to know there's something they can do, some skill they have, some ability that they have, that it might not be any different from anybody else's, but the delivery is different. For instance, McDonald's and Burger King both sell burgers. They're usually across the street or down the street from one another. Same meat. Here's the deal. One's fried, one's broiled. And that's what we got to get. When we understand that you might do what somebody else does, but the way you do it is what makes you special. That's what we help people to see. That's really, because my story, Vivian, I'm just going to be, it's your show, but I just want to talk for a minute. But about a year and a half ago, I realized that I was a liar. I did, because the life I created was a life that was given to me. At about 16 years old, some of my closest friends, something happened and they laughed at me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I had just moved to a new city. I had just developed a friend group. I moved to Shelby in the 11th grade. They laughed at me about something, and it hurt me so bad. I said, I will never be laughed at again. And so I used to dance. I developed this ability to dance years ago when breakdancing was a thing. I was good, but I built an entire early adulthood on that personality. So I became somebody as a result of this that happened to me. So I created an identity not wanting to be a person more so than creating an identity of who I was. And so my whole life was built on somebody that I was not. It was somebody that I became because of something that happened to me. And so I found out that I do motivational speaking. As soon as I finished speaking, I need you to tell me I did well. I feel like I'm not good. So I spoke to get accomplishments. I wrote books so people can tell me, man, that's a good book. It was good information, but I was looking for affirmation. And it finally hit me. You've done a lot of good things, but they've all been for the wrong reason. You're trying to get fulfillment and affirmation, and you want somebody to think you're okay. That's not who you are. And so I did a deep dive about a year ago, and I looked at Juan Cherry. Did not like what I saw because the person that I was at 55 was not who I started being at 12. And I realized I had to get back to who I was. And the person I was, this is crazy. I did the homework. I was confident, creative, compassionate, and consistent. That's who I was. Confident, creative, compassionate, and consistent. That's me, but that's not who I had become. And so I had to get back to who I was, right? And so that's where all this work came in. And so it's like I lived a persona for years that was not me, and I had to get back to who I was. And for the last year or so, that's who I've been. And sometimes what's happened is we create lives that were given to us and not the lives that God want us to have. It's kind of like when you're driving, a lot of accidents happen when you overcorrect. People will ride off the right side of the road, overcorrect, and go into the other lane. And many of us live lives overcorrecting. It's because something happened to us. We become somebody else, but not who God created us to be. And that's kind of where I found myself about a year ago. It's like, man, you've done a lot of good things, but they for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons. You're looking for affirmation. You're looking for somebody to tell you you're okay. You're looking for somebody to say, man, that was good. I found out something, Vivian. Nobody cares. It's nobody's responsibility to make me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
It's nobody's job to keep me and pump me up every day. And so that's the reality that I had to come to. And that's what I built my coaching business on, is I help talented people who lack self-confidence boldly pursue the life that God created them to have. Because you know you have skills, you're just afraid of it. And that's kind of what we help people do.
Wow, you're making me want to sit down with you.
It's my passion. I'm telling you. It's my passion.
Wonderful. So what brought you, what actually, was there something that a year ago that was significant in your life that moved you to realize, hey, this ain't working?
Here's what happened. It's going to sound like an assessment commercial, but that's really not what this is. What happens is when you take the assessment, you're going to find out that you have a strength in a couple areas, right? And so then that strength is actually called your preference. And so I always default to serving. I always default to empathy. I always default to being the one behind the scenes, right? And so I had to ask myself, where did that come from, right? Why am I so in my feelings? Why am I always wanting to serve and not be seen? Why do I not want to hurt people's feelings? What's behind that, right? What's behind it? And I always just thought that's who I am. But here's the story. When I was 12 years old, my parents divorced. Okay. I didn't know they were having problems. They did a great job hiding stuff from me. 12 years old, they divorced. But here's what happened. They said, listen, Juan, we love you. We don't want to upset your life. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to let you decide which one of us you want to live with, because we don't want to hurt you. But what I heard, Vivian, is, Juan, we're going to let you decide which one of our hearts you're going to break. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. So I spent they gave me the whole summer to make up my mind. I spent the whole summer crying. Whose heart am I going to break? Who am I going to disappoint? When I made my decision, I never forget the look in my parents' eye that I left. And so what happened at 12, 13 years old is subconsciously, I never wanted to hurt anybody else's feelings. I never wanted to break anybody else's heart. And so I became this person that wasn't confrontational. I became this person that kind of held my feelings because I didn't want to hurt somebody else. And the realization was I was 55 years old making decisions from the mindset of a 13-year-old child. That's not good husband material. That's not good father material. And so I had to dig and find that was one of the ways it came. And then the other way is when I created this persona based on this ability that was false and fake. And I realized all this time I've been looking for affirmation, doing things to get something and not doing things to be who I was. And that's kind of the work that I did as recently as this past summer. And that's how I came up with the fact I'm a liar. I've done all these things for the wrong reasons, you know, and that's what I want to kind of help. And I'm not saying everybody has a situation like mine, but if we would dig deep down, we would all realize that some of the things we do are not because we want to, but they're because of something that's happened to us, from experience that we've had, trauma that's created us to be the people that we are.
Wow. I am so glad that you mentioned that and talking about the trauma. And sometimes it is so deep in us that it hurts to even acknowledge it. I am doing this class right now, and it's called Authentic Life, or Authentic Life. And it is based on a book called Homecoming by Dr. Thema Bryant.
Okay.
Excellent book. And she talks about, you know, the inward and the outward of, and how sometimes we have to go in and repair ourselves.
Yeah.
And it is a process. And I've taken a couple of assessments, you know, having been in America. I did the DIS assessment, and you know, over time, those assessments have changed. I just recently took, maybe about 2 years ago, the Clifton Strengths and Finders, and more recently, about 6 months ago, I retook it. And because I'm at a different place,
right,
it is totally different.
Totally different.
We do have to stay on top of who we are. This is so wonderful, amazing. So tell me, what led you, because this is a huge undertaking,
right?
And it ties into your gifting of service and finding a church.
So what led me to finding a church?
And serving.
So is that the question? What led me to founding a church?
Yeah.
Okay. I was
this has been more than a year ago, right?
Yes. Oh yes.
And so
this was in 2005. We founded the church in 2005. So imagine this broken person who's struggling with identity, who's struggling with value and worth, trying to lead a group of people, right? I'm still caring to a fault at times, but I always want what's best for people. So there's nothing pretentious about it. There's just some holes in me that were keeping me from being successful. Now imagine a person who seeks approval, right? Or seeks affirmation. What happens when a person joins the church and leaves? They didn't leave the church. They left Juan Cherry. Juan Cherry did something to cause somebody to leave, right? Those are all the things that I was dealing with in my head. When somebody joined the church, Juan, they're accepting you. You're great.
Yeah.
But then when people leave, what did you do? Right? It's like that old relationship. Listen, if we broke up, tell me what I did. I can fix it. You know, just don't leave. But it's just the It's just the instability and the insecurity that I was moved by what other people did. And so I was always on a roller coaster, but the reason we founded the church is, I've been involved in ministry for probably about 12 to 15 years. I was a part of a church, and, things happened. It was just time to move on. And I was tired of ministry. I was almost tired of church. And so my wife and I we joined another ministry, and I was just like, hey, I just need to get somewhere and breathe. I don't want to preach. I don't want to lead. I don't want to speak. I just want to hear the word and go home. That's where I was. It was fine for about a month, Vivian. And so I'm sitting in the middle of the service, and God's like, what you doing? I'm like, Lord, I'm listening to the message. What do you mean? He's like, no, what you're doing, I've called you to do more than this, And so I knew it. So I sat down with my wife. I said, hey, honey, so I think the Lord's telling us to start a church. She said, nope, I ain't doing it. I said, okay. So I left it alone. About 2 weeks later, I went back. I said, hey, I never forget. I was sitting on the love seat. My wife was sitting on the couch. We were right across from each other. And I said, listen, I really think the Lord's telling us we need to start a church. And she'll tell you, she said, I started to tell you no. And the Lord said, shut your mouth and listen. And we had a conversation. And then, we kind of put the word out to a few people and, kind of started planning and praying, started as a Bible study. This happened probably in January, maybe of 2005. And we actually launched the church in June of 2005. And God's been amazing. In about 2008 or 9, we purchased 16.24 acres of land with about 20 people. We purchased 16, just over 16 acres of land. In 3 years, we paid it off. So we paid off our land. We built a church in, 2019. We built the church in 2009, and we paid it off in 2014. So we're actually in a building that we've paid off, on land that we paid off. God has been faithful to us in ministry. God has blessed us, but what's happening now, and I've told people this a lot, where Juan Cherry is now is God is teaching me leadership. You preach well, you care for people, but if you don't learn how to lead, you'll never be who I've called you to be. And so that's kind of how the assessment has come in. So this is what I'm learning to do. Some of the leadership is not my strength. So you learn how to pull people in that lead and you guide. That's how the assessment works. Find the people that lead. Let them lead under your guidance, because I can't waste too much energy doing what's not my strength, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's how the church started. Our vision is real ministry for real life, for real people. Real is relevant, empowering, accountable, and loving. If you're not relevant, you're not going to last. Some people have said, churches are now answering questions that people are no longer asking. That's not relevant. Then we got to be empowering. And that's kind of where I am about purpose and finding your gift and your talent. You got to empower people. Some people just need to be told, hey, you're okay. Let's give it another shot. Then we're accountable. And that's one of the things that we've got to deal with in church is leadership has to be accountable and people have to be accountable. Without accountability, you have nothing, right? And then finally, we're loving. Man, everybody falls. Everybody messes up. And the last thing you need is to be knocked down, looked down upon, talked about, But the Bible says this: if you see a brother overtaken in a fault, you with your spiritual, restore him with the spirit of meekness, right? And so it's all about being loving. I can preach sin every week. Preaching sin doesn't stop sin. It just stops us from talking about it, letting you know we're doing it. But love covers a multitude of sin. And when you learn how to love people at their lowest, you can help them be their best and reach their highest. And that's just kind of what we do.
That is so beautiful. So you talked about your view, the vision for the church. So what should the churches, when I speak, not just necessarily your church, but what should the church's vision be in this day and time? There's so much going on in the world now,
Mm-hmm.
and so many broken vessels.
Mm-hmm.
What should the church be doing?
Well, the church is a people business. You
Yes.
know, I know it's business. I know we've got to take care of facilities, finances, all those things. But church is a people business. Jesus said, all power has been given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and make disciples of all nations. It's about discipleship. It's about getting people to learn who Jesus is and then show them in your lifestyle how to be the people that God's created them to be. It's all a people business. We can get, there's a lot that goes on. There are a lot of trappings. There are a lot of excitement. There are a lot of things, but it's all about people. And I think in some way we've lost, I can't say we, let's say in some ways I've lost the fact that it's all about people and it's not about things. Somebody, man, the guy that preached the day I got saved, the only reason I got saved and went to hear him preach is because when I was a sinner, he would still talk to me. Before I accepted Christ, he treated us, all of us as we were somebody. We were at North Carolina A&T's campus. No matter what we did, he never condemned us. He didn't beat us over the head with the word. He would just speak to us lovingly. This guy preached an initial sermon on A&T's campus to college students, and 47 people gave their lives to Christ on a college campus on one Sunday morning. And I was one of them. And all my friends that were partying the night before, all of us except one or two got up and got saved that morning. And we're all friends to this day. We're all friends to this day. The guy that preached the day I got saved, and then the guy that led me in the prayer of salvation are still my mentors to this very day. We still talk, we're still close. And it's just because they showed me how to live it, and then they helped me live it. And that's what the church has to get back to.
My gosh, that is so very true. And really, that you quoted that scripture of make disciples. You get somebody saved. They're saved. You pray the prayer of salvation, but now you got to help them walk it out.
You gotta help them walk it out. Because the hardest thing to do is to do it on your own.
Yeah.
It's hard to come back to God when you fail. And if we miss the discipleship process, we're going to lose people because they feel like it didn't work and nobody was there for them. And that's the hard work of discipleship.
Yes. So I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Speaking of discipleship and shepherding, there's this verse, I think it's in Matthew somewhere, that Jesus looked on the crowd and had compassion on them. They were like sheep without a shepherd. So right now, political climate that is going on right now, and with all of the divide that is going on in our country, how do we shepherd people and give the love that people need from both sides?
Okay. Here's my thoughts on that. Okay. When Jesus looked at the crowd, he had been ministering all day, right? And when he looked at the crowd, the Bible says that when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion, right? Here's the deal, man. One of the guys that, and I say, man, I don't mean disrespectful, but one of the guys that led me in the prayer of salvation is he taught me this years ago. That word compassion, oikteros, Greek word, to be moved to one's inwards. It wasn't a mental compassion. It was something that happened in Jesus when he saw those people. Here's the word. They were as sheep having no shepherd. Why did he see that? Because he was a shepherd. He recognized sheep. If we're going to impact people, we have to see in them what we are. Does that make sense? Jesus was a shepherd, so he saw sheep.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesus was a fisherman per se, he would have saw fish and said, we got to do something about the fish. So here's the deal. You've got to see in people what draws you to them and then meet the need, if that makes sense. There's something about certain people that moves us on the inside. It may have, some people are moved by structure, and so they want to help people be structured. I'm moved by hurt because I know what that feels like. I can see hurt. And it's the compassion in me, the empathy that makes me move. And so here's the deal. You got to be close enough to people to be able to see them and have compassion, which means we got to come out of our walls, go to where people are and don't preach to them, sit among them, find out what's going on, and then you'll be able to help. And I think we've got to get back to people, whether you're red or blue, color, political party, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, we're all people. Can we look past the affiliations and see the humanity in people? And that will help us, because we all, listen, I'm sorry, I'm not a good interviewee. I just talk. But here's what you got to understand. My wife and I went out to eat several, this is about a year ago. We were somewhere, I don't know what happened. We were shopping or something. We went out to eat. And we were sitting there waiting on our table. So we're sitting in the car and we see this group of people and they're all just laughing. They're just ha, 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 laughing. When I got out of the car, I realized none of them spoke English. But you know what that told me? We all laugh in the same language. We all cry the same. So when you get down to the base of who we are, we're all the same.
We're simply people.
We're simply people. We're simply people. And we got to remember that.
That, and that is so good. I worked in the operating room.
Mm.
So when a person won surgery, they were put to sleep. They put all these drapes on them. I ain't gonna tell you what we all did at the head of the table, but you didn't necessarily see whatever, because you want people. Mm-hmm. Got them all covered. And once the surgeon opened up a person, you didn't see skin color. Mm-mm. Everything was the same on the inside. Everything located in the same place. Mm. So God just sees people. And if there's God in us, we have to do the same thing.
Right.
And one of your good friends, Juan Cherry, mm-hmm. He has this book. He's written this book, The
Children of Genesis. Yeah. I got it right here on my bookshelf.
And he talks about how there were skin colors, anything. It was all about nations.
Yes.
Did everybody a nation? He didn't see black, white, Chinese, right, whatever. So, right, very valid point there of just seeing people as people. So, what would you say? What are maybe 3 or 4 tidbits you would share with the listening audience about being their authentic selves and being able to see how God has created them to serve?
Okay. So did I hear you say about being our authentic self?
Yes.
Here's the thing. It's all about self-awareness, right? Mm-hmm. I've done a study on self-awareness, and there's a Harvard Business Review that says 95% of people believe they're self-aware, when in actuality, only about 10 to 15% are actually self-aware. Harvard Business Review study. 95 believe they are, 10 to 15% actually are, which means it's about 85% of us, that are wrong. Self-awareness is this: understanding who you are, your strengths, your limitations, the things that make you unique, first of all, but also understanding how other people see you. And that's kind of where we miss it, right? We know who we are, but we don't understand other people may not see us the way we see ourselves. That's where authenticity comes in. When I know who I am and I know how you see me, so then I know how to make adjustments. And that's the work that you have to do, because here's the thing: when I find out who I am, I can be cool with who I'm not. And that's what authenticity is. Listen, I might not preach the way you want me to, but I know how to do what I do. If I try to do you, it's going to be off. I'm not one of those. I can't hoop and holler, but I will break a word down to its very most basic point to get you to understand it. That doesn't work for everybody, right? But if I'm not secure in who I am, I'm going to get off and do something else. So you have to trust who God made you. Find the strength in that. Say it again.
It comes out false.
Yes. It does. It
does.
does.
Interrupting you.
No, you're fine. That's it. What was the second part on the next one?
What are some suggestions that you would share with those that are listening as to how to become that authentic, or how to become more self? Is it the assessment that will help them to do that, or what?
Yes.
Just share with them, share with us what are some steps that we can take.
My first step is to take the assessment.
Okay.
Take the assessment. It'll give you a baseline. Here's the thing. I'm in Shelby, North Carolina. I needed something for home improvement in my house. I needed something. So I Googled Lowe's. And the craziest thing, Vivian, is the Lowe's that came up in my phone was in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So when I looked at it, it was 3 hours and 20 minutes to get to the Lowe's when there's a Lowe's right here in Shelby. But for some reason, my phone is picking up in Atlanta in my hand in Shelby. And what many of us we don't even know our locations. We don't even know where we are. And when you don't know where you are, everything is thrown off, right? Stephen Covey in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says you cannot get to the right place using the wrong map. And what many of us are struggling with is we don't know who we are. Take an assessment. Here's another thing you can do. Very simple. Ask some people that know you best what they see as your strengths and what they see as the things, your blind spots, or the things you need to work on. Ask people you trust. What am I good at? What do you think I do well? And what do I need to work on? But be prepared for the answers. That's where you can start really easily, right? The second thing I tell you is, what are your interests? What do you like? We talk some about scripture, so I'm gonna give you this one. Do you remember when Jesus' family went to Jerusalem for the feast? You remember that? I believe Jesus got a whooping. They don't say it anywhere in scripture, but I believe Jesus got a whooping, because when they left Jerusalem and Mary and Joseph and all those people got a day's journey away and Jesus wasn't in that group, and they had to go all the way back a day's journey, and then they say they looked for him for 2 days. Jesus got a whooping, or he needed one, right? Because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. But when they found him, he was where? Where was he? You remember? He was in the temple. Why? He's the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
At 12, he said, I had to be about my Father's business. This is what I tell people. Where are you when you can't be found? Where can people find you when people don't know where you are? What does that mean? What do you like to study? What do you like to look at? What do you like? What do you find yourself doing? What do you get away and do? And that'll kind of help you figure out who you are. What things do you enjoy? What are you good at? What's easy to you that's hard for most? What's effortless but excellent? When you figure those things out, it'll kind of help you see who you are and what you can do. But don't compare it. Because when you compare yourself to somebody else, you're focusing on them and not you. And then you miss out on what you bring because you're focusing on what they bring.
This is so good. This is so good, Juan. I'm telling you guys, he has given some really, really valuable. Well, you know what? I would say he's giving you a hearty, hearty meal. He's giving you a 5-star dinner. And if you are not willing to get on board and take this assessment and really, in this day and time, to be where God would have you to, I'm telling you, you really are missing out. And I think in these days and in these times that are ahead of us, we need to really be sure.
Yeah.
There's a hymn that goes something like, be sure, be very sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, God has gifted us all. He's gifted us all. And he's made a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
People. So I just appreciate you sharing so much and sharing your story, sharing your real heart with people, because I am sure that there is someone out there that is going through that same thing, someone that's listening and saying, hey, this is truly what I need to do. So one, would you share with them how they can get in touch with you, your email, your platforms? And before you share the platforms, talk about some of the literary work that you've put out.
Okay. I've been fortunate. I've written 5 books, and I have them here. But here's how the book started. My mother, as you know, you grew up with my mom. My mom was a little different. She would buy me books for presents when I was a little boy. You know, I can remember Curious George. You know, I can remember Harry the Dirty Dog. You know, all these little books. I'm like, Mom, boy, I like books, but I want toys. I want action figures. But what she did was she put in me a love for reading and a love for words. We would watch like Wheel of Fortune and do crossword puzzles. That's how we would compete. And I did not realize what was happening. And so, you know, the first book I wrote, Wired for Success, Equipped to Fulfill What You've Been Created to Accomplish. This started, Miss Vivian, I was preaching a series of messages called How to Succeed and Never Fail. Preached it for 6 weeks. I was keeping notes on a little notepad. And I said, man, I got notes everywhere. I'm going to try, instead of trying to keep up with all these notes, I'm just going to type them in so I have them. So I started typing the notes and I said, wait a minute. What would happen if I just kept writing? And that's how the book was written. So I would write some of it and I would share the manuscript with my mom. And honestly, my mom would read back to me what I had written and I didn't remember writing it.
Wow.
She would read it back and I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. So I know this one was God. This was my first book. You don't have to get all of them, but the second one I did is So You Want to Be a Mentor. I spent years working Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, and coaching and doing all those things. And that book is designed, anybody's involved in coaching, mentoring, how to build a relationship with kids, how to break down those walls to find that commonality so that y'all can build a mentoring relationship to help a child see themselves from the eyes of a positive adult. So that's where that came from. Then we started a boys mentoring program called Man to Man, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that I have, which is built to help boys make a transition to manhood. In the African community, Kunta Kinte was involved in that. We have the rites of passage. That's what was going on with him when he was taken and brought to the United States. And then in the Jewish culture, you have the bar mitzvah for boys, bat mitzvah for girls when they get a certain age. That's what that organization is designed. Give boys what they need to do as they become men, things they need to know to operate in the community. This is my baby, Unstuck. What to do when what you know to do isn't working. And this book is designed, I know my purpose, I know what I'm after, but man, nothing's working right now. What's happened? It's just like working out. you reach a plateau.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to change your workout if you're going to get results. This book is designed to help you say, okay, this is not working. What do I need to do? And so we break down all the things you can do when stuff is not working that you can check to see what's going on. All right, what's next? Beyond the Books, a ninth grader's guide to high school success. Okay. I'm a high school counselor. This is an Amazon bestseller. Unstuck was also an Amazon bestseller. But this book, I do classroom guidance, and ninth graders come to high school struggling. They don't understand the rules change, the game change. They don't understand that things are different in high school. And so all this book is about that. You know, what's the difference? Course credits now. It's not about passing the grade, it's credit. So that's what Beyond the Books is. Then I said, well, what's next? Well, then we wrote Beyond the Basics. And this is the parents' version of Beyond the Book. So all the calls I get from parents about, is my child on track to graduate? What are the graduation requirements? What's the GPA? All that stuff is broken down into that book. So those are the little bit of work that I did. Say it again.
Parents and grandparents.
Parents and grandparents. Yes, ma'am. But that's what those are. It's really just stuff that I've had in conversation, talked to people about. We put it in a book so families can have it, you know, and get in. There's a lot of stories in there, but it's really applicable things that students and families can do to be successful in high school. In order to reach me, email Juan Cherry 07@gmail.com. My Instagram is Juan Cherry Wired for Success. My Twitter is Bowtime Baby. I developed a persona called Bowtime where I would do 60-second videos. I used to always wear a bow tie. We would just hit you with a simple message, hopefully change the way you think about something. And so all of those things, you know, are things that I've done. And those are the ways to reach out to me. But here's the thing, Vivian. All that stuff I just talked to you about was made by a broken man. it was made to get acceptance. So even if you're not who you should be, still do what you do. Because once you get to where you need to be, you still have the resources that you need. Can I finish with this last story real quick?
Absolutely.
We lived one time. We talked about this before. And several years ago, I was working at the Boys and Girls Club, and we had a football team, Pop Warner football team, 11 to 13-year-olds, and they would go to Florida. And these kids, we would charter a bus. They would take the kids to Florida. They would play in a bowl game. One of the things that the kids would get is they would get to go to Disney World, right? And so these kids, imagine, never been out of Cleveland County. You know, they're down there in Florida, they're at Disney World. Kids are living it up. But then they noticed there was this one kid that every time they saw him, he was just walking around by himself. So finally, one of the coaches walked up to him and said, "Hey, man, what's going on? You're not riding." And he said, "I don't have any tickets." Because in his mind, at the Cleveland County Fair, you get in, but you got to have tickets to ride. And he didn't realize that once he got in Disney World, you didn't need a ticket. You could just ride everything that was there, right? And so once they told that young man that, they said they couldn't get him off a ride. But imagine this. He spent hours walking around a park with what he needed to ride, but his mentality was on tickets. And here's what I want people to understand. If you're in this life, you don't need tickets. You've been given admission to life. Now, whether or not you ride is on you, but you're probably not coming back to do this again. So you better make the most out of this thing called life, because it's sad to sit on the sidelines of life and never live. And then you're going to wake up one day and wish you would have, should have, could have done some things that it's going to be too late to do.
Oh, wow. I guess y'all heard that. Please hear that.
You only live once.
Hear that. Not just listen, but really hear it and take it to heart. Because that is just so true. I know some people that, you know, like you said, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and now can't.
Yeah.
And now can't. And have
now can't.
And have so much to give. One, thank
Hmm.
you so much for
Thank
sharing
you for having me. Thank you
so
so much. I've enjoyed talking to you. I really have.
you. And I know, listening audience, I know y'all got it going on out there, right? And what I would love to have you to come back, or I have another group that I usually do on Zoom call. We were just together on Sunday night and had a wonderful time together. And we just love for you to come sometime and share with them also.
Let me know. We can definitely make it happen. Definitely make it happen.
And so, once again, tell people how they can get to you to do that assessment.
Okay.
That's because I need y'all to do that assessment so you can come back and be on this.
Here it is. Send me an email, juancherry07@gmail.com. And then what happened then is I'll send you a link with the assessment on it. Again, it'll take about 15 minutes. You'll get your results. Then we'll schedule a consultation, talk for about 45 minutes, and get you started to understanding who you are and the steps you need to take to be who you really want to be.
Oh, and this was another thing that I wanted to ask you. Do you ever do it like a group counseling or group?
With the assessment, or
Well, I know that once people do the assessment,
Mhm.
but a group counseling type thing,
I do group coaching.
group coach,
Uh,
maybe
I
that.
do some group. I've developed a curriculum. It's like a six module curriculum that
Uh,
walks you through discovering your strengths, your finding out your limitations, understanding what makes you unique, digging in all that work I did to figure out that I was an imposter and a liar. We put that in a program. And so now we'll go in and you'll examine every area of your life. Is it who you are, who you thought you would be? I mean, really walk you through it. And so when you get to the end of it, you'll be able to understand exactly who you are, what you bring, and the steps you need to take to stay effective. So I'm telling you, it was hard to do because it's my experience. It's not something I did in my head, but my experience I put in the curriculum, and we can help people walk through it.
and see, that makes it so much more real because you have experienced this. This is
It's
not
tough.
something I heard about, but this is something that I have walked. This is
And
something I lived.
that's that's the crazy thing is I did a curriculum before that was all head knowledge. It was
Yeah.
all, theory. But this one, nah, this is life. This is
And
life.
that's
But there's life on the other side of life. There's life on the other side.
That's certainly a God thing. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Realigning Your Life. And this is really the personification of what this podcast is all about. It's about us realigning our lives
Yeah.
to be all and everything that God has created us to be. Remember
Yeah.
my verse that I truly love, Ephesians 2:10. For we are his masterpieces. I like to
Oh my
use
goodness. Oh my
create
goodness.
Christ Jesus to do great things. And
That's in
so
the book. That's I got a chapter on that. We got to talk about that, but we can't do it now. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But that word masterpiece, poema, same word we get poem from. You are his masterpiece, his creative work of art. You are
yeah,
his. I'm sorry, but but it's not just a piece of art because
right, yes, he's created a masterpiece. I did.
yes,
You
yeah,
are you are his Michelangelo masterpiece.
yes, you are
And
a god. That's a Picasso. That's a
yes,
Michelangelo. Vivian, you're a god.
yes,
You're a god piece.
yes. We can go on and on and on forever. I am so enjoying this. So you have got to come back for
Yes, ma'am.
another episode because you have so much to share. So, listeners, I pray that you have truly enjoyed this. And just remember that God loves you. He's got great works for you to do. And until the next episode, I leave you with his peace. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The best gift that you could give me is to share this podcast with family and friends. And don't forget to review it. That way, this podcast will grow organically. If you need to reach out to me, please check out my Facebook page, DM me there, or you can email me at godskow@gmail.com. We have upcoming Bible studies that we would love for you to join us in, or if there is a guest or someone that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, please let me know. We are here to work together to realign our lives. Until the next episode, take care, and I look forward to sharing more and more with you as we realign our lives. Peace until next week.